What's up YouTube, ODST General back again with another versus video. It's been a little bit since we've done one of these, and I found this one particularly challenging to do because it's something I was very excited to show these two games off when I saw Police Simulator Patrol Officers because of all the similarities, obviously the name of these two games. I really wanted to just compare the two of them, talk about the similarities and the differences between the two of them, but it was challenging because I just really found myself having a hard time articulating what really sets these games apart and like what actually makes these games different, because the similarities for these games are many and they're obvious, but the differences are just as important, if not more important, and those are a lot more subtle. So anyways, let's go ahead and talk about the two games. So we have Police Simulator Patrol Officers and Police Simulator Patrol Duty. Patrol Duty is the older of these two games that was released by Big Moon Entertainment back in 2019. And Police Simulator Patrol Officers just came out to the public a few days ago here. And I really haven't had too much time with it, unfortunately, to really get into the game as much as I would have liked to before doing this video. But that one's made by Acer Interactive and backed for producing it by Astragon Entertainment. And of course, Astragon, big simulator company, you know, they do a ton of the simulator games. Firefighting Simulator as another first response game recently done. So anyways, these two games, as I said, did have many similarities, so we'll talk about that first. So obviously, aside from the name, which is the biggest thing, these games technically aren't related at all. But when you get into the games, gameplay-wise, they feel very similar. Third-person gameplay as a police officer. When you start your shift in both games, you start and end your shift at your computer. You go in, you select duty at a specific location in each game. You have specific goals for each day. So in the case of Patrol Duty, it will give you a very specific job that you have to do each day when you select one of 3 tasks. Patrol Officers is a little bit more open-ended. I'll get more into that later, but basically you select your shift in each area, kind of similar to it, and then you'll be randomly assigned a bonus objective to complete during the course of the day. And again, I'll get more into it, but that's an important distinction between the two. Aside from that, the types of calls you're going to be taking as a cop are very similar. You're going to be doing a lot of ticketing, searching for suspects, traffic duty, stuff like that. There are some differences. You deal with a lot of accidents in Patrol Officers, whereas Patrol Duty actually has like police chases. It goes a little bit heavier with the crime scenes, although both games have crime scenes and accidents and stuff like that that are kind of similar, which have you going around collecting evidence, talking to witnesses, things of that nature. So the games are very similar in many, many, many respects. Now, with that being said, again, these are technically different games despite the names. Now, what I think really sets them apart is that Patrol Officers, the newest of these two games, has a lot more detail in the tasks that you're actually taking on. When you go to assign a ticket in this game, you don't just say, here's a ticket for parking the wrong... Well, I mean, you don't just say, here's a ticket because you're parked incorrectly. You say, here's an ticket, you're parked incorrectly, and then you go into sub-options for it, and you say, you were parked the wrong way. You were parked on the sidewalk. You're parked too far away from the sidewalk. And if you ticket a car incorrectly, you get points deduced. Conduct points are a big thing in Patrol Officers. If you are breaking the law yourself, or if you are incorrectly assigning tickets, things of that nature, you have points deducted. The game is very forward about that, more so than Patrol Duty. Patrol Duty, you can speed around, go all over the place, go down the wrong road, jaywalk, just do whatever the heck you want to do. And there isn't really any punishment or negative side effects, anything like that, that you really have to worry about with Patrol Duty. So that is a big difference between the two, is the existence of the conduct points. But again, Patrol Officers also really focuses on the small details, and that really shines, in my opinion, with the driver's license and insurance system for Patrol Officers. When you go to an accident, you'll most commonly see this, but really anytime you stop somebody, you're going to probably be IDing them, and you're going to have to go through this. And when you look at the ID, there's a lot of things that could be potentially incorrect, so you really need to check the IDs, and you really need to pay attention to what you're looking at. The pictures can be faked. The expiration dates could be expired. So there is a set date in the game, and you need to make sure that you're aware of what the day is, and actually make sure that IDs and stuff that you're looking at, license plates, make sure those are valid, because those can be expired. And yeah, just information can be fake. So yeah, you can see, you know, non-matching names between a car insurance and the driver's license. The driver's license can be expired. The insurance can be expired. They might not have insurance. I've seen insurance. People got into an accident. They gave me the insurance. The insurance was valid. It was in their name, but it was for a completely different vehicle. So there's all these things that you have to look out for. They weren't insured to drive that vehicle. That really makes a big difference in the gameplay, and I think that's what really is the big thing or one of the two big things that sets aside these games for me, is the amount of detail makes it really important, and really interesting to actually go in and do these kind of mundane tasks, because to be honest, both of these games are more the mundane aspects of policing compared to something that's more like LSPDFR or even flashing lights, where you're going to be focusing more on police chases, gas station robbery, shoplifting, calls with people with guns. You really don't see that in either of these titles. This is, you know, going out, like I said, traffic tickets, DUI checkpoints, searching for a wanted person who, you know, typically, even though they're wanted for whatever reason, they're not aggressive. They'll stop and they'll be cooperative with you and everything. They might try to run potentially. I don't think anybody will actually pull a gun or anything on you, though. There's no shootouts or anything, at least in patrol officers. So that is it's a pretty big thing. A pretty big focus of both of these games is just being mundane. And that's why the details that Patrol Officer has is important, because it gives it a lot more variety. You have to focus on each and every stop that you make, and you really have to pay attention to what you're doing, and it makes you a lot more involved. And I think that's part of what keeps it fresh, is because you actually are focusing on the game. You're focusing on the gameplay, and it keeps it from becoming stale or too easily repetitive, because you don't need to focus. That's one issue with patrol officers is, you know, you'll go out and, you know, the gameplay footage, the B-roll I have here is me searching for wanted persons, and you'll talk to the person and they'll either run or they won't run, typically speaking. And then usually when they're running, it's just them running circles around the block. It's pretty mindless. You don't really need to think too much about it. It's just the hardest part's actually finding the people, and then once you get it, there's no real engagement or anything to really grab you with the gameplay. So that is a huge thing, and like I said, that really extends to pretty much every facet of patrol officers, and you'll see that in the license plates, like I said. So at the license plate, there's expiration tags. Some of them will be from 2019, 2020, 21, and the tags are different colors, so you can just kind of glance at tags, but you'll have to pay attention to that. You'll have to pay attention to the license plate numbers to actually make sure they match the insurance. There's all these details that really keep everything fresh. Speeding, you see a little bit of that on the B-roll that just passed. I was checking for speeders. I had my my speed radar out, or speed gun, or whatever you want to call it, but I had that out, and my radar was checking the vehicles, and it takes a little bit of time for it to actually clock the speed. You need a clear shot on the license, but if you get that, you can charge people for speeding. But then again, you need to know what the speed limits are. Now, some places that's posted, but there's a general speed for the whole town, and that's actually in the handbook, and that is an important aspect of patrol officers, again, is the details, the conduct points. This city is a city of laws. You need to abide by those laws, as do other people. But in order to actually enforce the laws properly, you need to be familiar with them. Now, it's pretty easy to become familiar with the laws of Brighton in patrol officers. Most of them are pretty obvious. And, you know, if you watch a few YouTube videos, you'll probably have a good idea of all the laws anyways. But if you don't, you'll need to actually go into your handbook and read through it. If you're going into this game not knowing anything of it, not watching any gameplay videos, you could make mistakes. You could charge people incorrectly, and you will get conduct points deducted because you had unjustified stops. So that is a huge thing. That might be a turn-off for some people, but for me personally, looking at an immersive aspect of the game, that makes the game much more immersive. It makes it much more engaging and challenging. Aside from that, going back to some of the similarities between the two games, as I said, the calls and stuff are very similar. Both games have you starting off with just a fraction of your equipment or unlocks, and then as you play through, you'll unlock more by doing calls and earning experience. So obviously, the more tickets you assign or the more calls you partake in, the more experience you can get in a day. So obviously, certain calls will also give you more points. So something to be aware of. You don't start with a car and patrol officers. That's probably the biggest downside for a lot of people, is that you are required to go on foot patrols, and you'll be stuck doing foot patrols for about an hour and a half to 3 hours. I found it probably a little bit closer to 2.5 hours to 3 hours, although I've heard people doing it less. Again, that's just partially down to the calls you're getting and how quickly you're actually doing those calls and everything. Aside from that, though, you know, you do get a police car eventually. So that is a very big thing. Now, the other thing that really sets apart these two games, going back to the differences, and the other really big thing that is, to me, important, is that when you go out on a call and patrol duty, the older of these two titles, you pick what your call is, essentially what your task is for the day when you start off. So in the case, again, of the B-roll footage we have rolling, I am searching for wanted persons. You have to go out and find 3 people, in this case drug dealers, although in other cases it's people wielding guns, and they'll be scattered around the search area, which is the blue highlighted area on the mini-map, and you have to look around for them. These people stand out pretty well. In the case of this particular call, they just stand around. Everybody else that's AI will actually walk and move, so when you do actually see them, they stand out like a sore thumb. Now, with that being said, the setup itself for patrol duty to me is a big negative, and the reason for that is that you get these calls, and the way the task is put in front of you is like, this is your mission, this is the percentage of your mission completed, and you need to get this mission completed for the day. And so you go out, and everything else feels secondary to these objectives, and these objectives are, I think, largely what makes the game feel so repetitive and redundant in so many functions, because you'll get random callouts, you can stop random vehicles, but all of that feels secondary to these objectives that you get at the start of your day. And like I said, those are very repetitive. You're just repeating the same tasks over and over in different areas, and it's kind of boring. You know, like I said, it's not nearly as engaging with these calls. You know, you arrest the person, you know, you can search them and everything to find the stolen goods, drugs, weapons, stuff like that. You can ID them. You can technically run background checks, but you can actually run the background check before actually IDing them, and you'll still get like an information just popping up saying like, this person's a criminal, and there's no actual background information on the crimes or anything. It's very basic. Honestly, the big negative to that, again, is just repetitive, and even though there is a lot more content in the game, you feel like you just don't necessarily have time to approach it, because both games do have you on a set timer. There's only so much time in the day that you have to actually perform all of your tasks and get back to the station.
Here you go.
Now, patrol officers is a lot better, in my opinion, and the reason for that is that while you do, once again, choose your patrol for the day, you're choosing the area, and then you get a randomly assigned task. Now, that itself is better, but the reason I feel it's really truly better is that the objectives aren't a very specific thing, and it's just bonuses. So you'll get bonuses for clocking speeders in a certain area, issuing tickets to parked vehicles, stuff like that. So you'll get different varying objectives. Now, those themselves could become repetitive, but again, that feels secondary to whatever you're wanting to do. You'll get bonus points. The game rewards you for doing it, but it doesn't necessarily feel like it's going to punish you for not doing it. You can focus other tasks. You're free to take car accidents. If a car accident happens in front of you, you're going to be inclined to take it, and it opens up emergent gameplay. You can start by going to just issue tickets, stuff like that, and it really makes a big difference. Unfortunately, in this footage, I didn't have the cop car unlocked yet, but I have since unlocked the cop car, and during my gameplay for patrol officers, I went to actually pull out of the police station, and before I could even pull out of the police station parking lot, somebody drove by with neon lights underglow on their car, which is illegal in the city of Brighton by patrol officers' handbook. And so I went to pull the person over, and I was going to issue them a citation for that probably. However, when I went to pull them over, they went to turn in and they hit the person in front of them. And that triggered a minor car accident. Now, there was barely a scratch on either person's side. That was what I would call emergent gameplay, sure. I would have just stopped the person, maybe issued a ticket or a warning for the underglow, and that would have probably been it. But now I've got this car accident, and that changes things. Both drivers step out of their vehicle. I now have to check both drivers' insurances, check, their witness reports. I have to check both people's stories, see what they said happened, take pictures of the vehicles, so I can get pictures of the damage, proof, and all that stuff. And that opens up the potential, and that one was a fairly mild call, even with that happening, but that opens the potential for finding weapons in vehicles, people on drugs, all sorts of stuff, and you really just don't get anything like that with patrol duty. Again, a lot of that is just simply the way the game is set up and such a big focus on actually going in and arresting these criminals or doing your DUI checks. There is stuff like that in the game, but it just doesn't feel like it's random or going to pop up and escalate and things like that or change. That's the big benefit for police simulator patrol officers to me, is that stuff feels like it's happening randomly, and it is a little bit more random because of that. Of course, both games will issue you, once again, call-outs, but again, going back to setup for patrol officers, you just simply feel a little bit more free to answer those call-outs, and that is a big difference between these two games. So just right offhand, I would say if you had to pick between these two games, patrol officers is the go-to. Now, there is negatives to patrol officers currently. As I said, I have not had much chance to play this. This isn't necessarily a negative, but just more so a concern of mine, is that when I first started playing Patrol Duty, and many other content creators, we all enjoyed it, and in fact, many people I talked to enjoyed it. The problem is after about a week or two of Patrol Duty, the game soured very quickly. I haven't had an opportunity to even get to that point with patrol officers. But as I said, these games are very similar in many respects, so I am concerned that that is a strong possibility. Now, again, not necessarily an issue with the game, just a concern of mine going forwards. And it's one I can't make a determination on during this video, and I won't be able to make it probably for a little while after the video. Nonetheless, the other issues I have with the game is that Patrol Officer simply does not actually have everything Patrol Duty has. Patrol Duty actually has, in some ways, some more content that's actually more important in some respects. Patrol Duty has night missions. Not a huge deal. Honestly, in the case of Patrol Duty, I would say it's actually kind of inconsequential because the night is so bright anyways, it doesn't really matter. But again, they're there. It does add a little bit of variety, actually being able to go on the night calls, and in some cases it can make things a little bit more challenging. The other thing is, and this is arguably a little bit more important, is that Patrol Duty actually has multiplayer, which Patrol Officers does not have multiplayer yet. And that's going to be the big thing, and again, this is something that we can't really judge one way or the other during the course of this video, and we won't be able to judge it for a little bit, but Patrol Officers does have a roadmap for continued development. When Patrol Duty had dropped, that was it. That was the game. I think we got maybe a patch or two of bug fixes during the course of that first week or so, and then that was the whole development of the game, and that was everything at that point. Everything else development-wise just ceased. The developer moved on to other titles, and that was it. With Patrol Officers, they have a roadmap that goes out. It's got plans for multiplayer, it's got plans for nighttime, it's got plans for modding, it's got plans for new vehicle releases. It does also have less vehicles, again, than Patrol Duty. Patrol Duty had a few different vehicles you could unlock. Patrol Officers currently only has the one cruiser. Again, if they do continue to support the game after launch, with their current roadmap, that's pretty huge, and we could always see more DLC. I'm not really familiar with the developer Acer too much. They did have other games under their belt, so they might, after the roadmap is complete, they might only have 1 or 2 people working on this. They might be a bigger developer, and they might be working on other projects, and they might transfer those people once the roadmap's complete. Or it could end up being that these people are going to continue developing the game even after the roadmap's complete, and we'll see DLCs and stuff. We have no way of knowing that right now, though, is the issue. And again, modding is on that roadmap, and modding really just changes the landscape of a game. Modding can take a game that would normally last, a month or two in a big flash of popularity, something like Among Us where everybody's playing it, and then everybody quits. Modding can take something like that and then turn it into a cult classic game that lasts 10, 15 years. So that's something to bear in mind. That is planned, but it's not available now. Now, with that being said, I always personally recommend not buying a game off of what's planned, what might come out, because you just never know if that stuff will come out, if it's going to come out the way it's said it's going to. Support the game as it stands now. Expect that the game will never change. If you like the product, support it. If you don't mind, or maybe you're not completely happy with the product, but you still like the developer, you still want to see them hopefully support it. Strongly consider buying the game, even if you think it's not quite there development wise. If you can afford it and you want to support the developer, absolutely go for it. But again, expect that development will never come. And so that's the light I have to look at Patrol Officers right now, is that it is somewhat feature incomplete compared to Patrol Duty. So again, I don't know if it's going to have any more longevity than Patrol Duty, and that is a big concern of mine. Pricing wise, Patrol Officers is more expensive. The price I actually have listed for this video is the full price. The game is currently on sale while I record this video, but that sale will end and it's obviously going to go up in price. And the price may change as the game is currently considered early access. So they said the price may possibly go up when the game goes to full release. It's always hard to tell with an early access title, and to be honest, sometimes they do. Sometimes they stay the same price, so it's always difficult to say. So bear that in mind, take that to heart when you guys are watching this video. If you end up watching this video when the game comes out to full release, a year or two down the road, whenever that may be, the price may have changed since I recorded this. But again, at $24.99, as the game stands right now, if I just had to make a decision on it, definitely Patrol Officers is the way to go, 110%. Now, Patrol Officers and Patrol Duty both face several bugs, several issues. Nothing really major as far as I'm aware with Patrol Duty currently. Just some minor stuff, and it's all pretty innocuous from what I saw. Patrol Officers had some a little bit bigger bugs. There was a crash going on that was fixed already and addressed pretty quickly by the development team, but there is some bigger core issues that I've run into. Things like cars going through on red lights, civilians walking through on, red hand signs for crosswalks, to no cross signs. And have a nice day. Things like cars with expired license plates or cars parked in non-parking areas, and then you go to give a ticket and then the game says the ticket's not justified. And the developer has heard the reports for these bugs, and it's kind of tricky in a game like this where the specifics are so important, because it's very easy to confuse a vehicle that was parked properly or something with a vehicle that was parked improperly sometimes. And so it's difficult for the developers in the sense that they're not really sure if all the bug reports they're getting are actually legitimate bug reports or not. But there's definitely been instances where it's like a car will basically not start going through the intersection until it's red, but they, as far as the computer's concerned, it was triggered to go on green, and for some reason it just couldn't. Maybe your cars were driving by or whatever, but it'll go through on red, and so you have to be really careful about that. It's not been a huge issue for me, but you do lose some points. It's not a huge difference, but it will slow gameplay down for unlocks and stuff a little bit. Now, with that being said, I got pretty much everything after like a day of playing of the game, so maybe 2 days. So yeah, it's pretty quick to unlock this stuff. relatively issue-free, even with the bugs and stuff in place as they stand right now. Aside from that, like I said, I was kind of having a hard time articulating what all I wanted to talk about with the game, so I think that's the big thing, is just bulletin point, detail. That's what it comes down to, is detail, and the game feeling a little bit more random with patrol officers. The gameplay feels more emergent, less planned, stuff like that. Commenting on what just happened with that mission failure, it had been a while since I'd taken any calls like that in patrol duty again. It puts the daily calls in front of you. I completed my daily call, and there was an assault in progress. I literally had some guy attacking the guy on the ground, so I tried pepper spraying him, and the game failed the mission because I didn't try to talk to him first. Well, he was in the middle of kicking some guy on the ground. Anyways, yeah, I wasn't really happy about that. And then there was also another bug earlier on, or well, not necessarily a bug, but a problem that I had earlier on with one of the chases, which I didn't address while it was happening, but I was chasing, I think, my first suspect in the video, and I accidentally managed to interact with a car nearby as I was going to chase the guy, and the game was trying to suck me into the car, so even though I was trying to run away and go and actually chase down the suspect I was supposed to be after, the game kept trying to pull me towards the car to the point that I had to just quit fighting the game, let my character go back to the car and actually interact with the person, and then disengage with them and wait for my officer to say, okay, thank you, bye, and like do that whole thing and go through the animations before I could actually go and start chasing my suspect again. So as you might imagine, he had a pretty big lead. So I just wanted to talk about that real quick. And again, the big issue and big thing to keep in mind while watching this gameplay is that I am much earlier in patrol officers than I am in patrol duty. Especially at the time this was recorded. I didn't have my cruiser. I didn't have all the calls unlocked. I didn't have all the equipments that you can get in the game unlocked. So something to bear in mind, you guys are still seeing the tutorials for my first time getting calls and stuff like that. You actually are witnessing my first car accident in the game, where I get to talk to people and all that stuff. So yeah, definitely just a lot of things going on there. Other than that, though, I think we're kind of nearing the end, so I'm not really sure if there's anything else I need to talk about or cover. So I guess, of course, guys, if you have any questions, anything like that, just let me know in the comments below, and we'll discuss that and talk about it. I've got a little bit longer to go in the video, though, so I'm going to just keep talking for a teeny bit longer next few minutes and just try to burn up the time. But, yeah, again, small details really make this game. If you guys are into that sort of thing, small, mundane stuff, this is the game for you. I hate calling the game mundane because it makes it sound boring, but again, this isn't the exciting, like, shootouts. It's not homicide cases. It's traffic tickets, DUI checkpoints, and car accidents is the bones of this game. It's the meat of the game, too. More stuff is coming, more calls, shoplifting, stuff like that, so you'll actually start getting some aggressive criminals down the road, but we are not there yet. Yeah, and I just really don't know what else to say about the game at this point, either game, but do bear in mind these are different games, and, they shouldn't be treated the same. So, I know that's a big worried point a lot of people have when they're hearing just the name of the game alone, and my first initial reaction when I heard the name is like, is this the same company making this? Like, no way I'm buying that. But it is different company, different developer, and Patrol Officers is a much better game, just right off bat as it sits right now. Even though it doesn't have as much content, and that is important, Patrol Officers is still the better game of the two. I don't know if I'll remember, but I'll try to include the development roadmap too in the video, maybe, or like a link either in the information section, or I'll include something in the first post potentially the day I post this, maybe, possibly, depending on where I'm at when the video goes up. But yeah, again, if you guys have any questions about Patrol Officers, let me know. I just recently posted a video of Patrol Duty not too long ago, just this past weekend, and Patrol Officers also got a video recently. And more will be coming for Patrol Officers with, the cop car and out of the cop car, probably. Other than that, though, according to my timer, I'm almost up on time, guys. So thank you again for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. The timing might be off a little bit because I had a little bit of non-recorded audio, just why I waited for the video and stuff to sync up. But again, I hope you guys enjoyed everything. Enjoy this last teeny bit of footage here for these last few seconds of the two games, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take it easy.
Please tell me the address and I'll send an ambulance right away.